Welcome to Take Your Lead podcast, a podcast where we empower you to take charge of your personal growth, development, as well as your emotional well-being. Thank you so much for being part of a community of leaders who are intentional and consistent in the area of their growth. Thank you so much for rating and reviewing our content. We encourage you to share and interact with us. It helps us to reach more leaders. If you are a leader who's leading teams, I encourage you to go through the content together with your teams. It will add great value. I also want to remind you on this podcast episode that we've got the episode notes which will help you with application of the content. You can head over to www.mzwandilemakakula and you will receive the episode notes. I'm so honored and super excited on this podcast episode to be joined by a phenomenal, incredible leader. A leader who emulates what they teach. Podcast family, this episode is pure gold. For those who might be listening while running, while jogging, while driving, I encourage you later when you have time for reflection, download the episode notes and listen through because I definitely know it will add great value to you. I'm joined on today's episode by an amazing leader known as Mr. Langton. For those who know him in a different context, it's Bernard Langton, who has been an educator and a school principal. He's studied and has grown to obtain his BA junior degree at the University of South Africa and then obtained his MPhil degree in educational leadership. Over the years, he has obtained a number of additional courses. He's passionate about growth, as you will hear from his profile. He's literally, every time I'm with him, he's studying something, he's reading something, he's learning something. And one of the beautiful things I love about him is always willing to share. He's grown as well recently. He studied neuroscience as a recent addition to his self-improvement. Ongoing self-improvement is his commitment, not only to himself, but to all those he serves. His work history entails 36 years of experience in independent education. He has been in senior management positions in schools for 18 years. His passion for service has seen him serve on many committees, serving the needs of the marginalized in society. And this has seen him apply the neuro-coaching with neuro-linguistic programming techniques to bring out the best in people. Education is changing, he believes, and schools have to adapt to this new normal. We'll possibly talk more about that in the episode. He's been instrumental in bringing an understanding to the challenges of the disruption to education and the change needed to meet it. He's passionate about transformation and helping people make those transitions. He's also passionate about sport and this has seen him serve rugby in KwaZulu-Natal for many years before relocating to Gauteng. Coaching sport has always been used as a vehicle to help people realize their potential and beyond. He also loves playing golf. He's an avid golfer. Been running away from playing with him because I know if he, from the tee box, he plays his 2-iron, 3-iron, you can just imagine what will happen. But over and above that, leadership development and philosophy books dominate his reading materials. He loves his family and is committed to his faith, and they are cornerstones of his life. Ladies and gentlemen, podcast family, won't you help me welcome on this beautiful episode, Bernard? Welcome to Take Your Lead podcast.
It's an absolute honor and a pleasure to be here today.
Thank you so much for making time and being part of this vehicle where we want to help leaders be better and do better. Maybe with that beautiful bio which I was introducing the guests to, but over and above all that I said, I think I love your heart for people, your love for leadership and adding value to people. Maybe just to take us through to the podcast family as to who you are, what you love and what you're passionate about.
Zwandile, I come from KwaZulu-Natal originally, grew up in a very large family of 8 children. I was in the middle, so I got up to a lot of mischief, got away with a lot of things, being in the middle of so many siblings. Yeah. I've always found myself wanting to lead. It's just been something that I think it gets thrust upon you from a young age. Yeah. And you almost grow into it. You find that you don't want to be a leader, but you have followers. It's the strangest kind of a thing. And that's what happens as you grow through life, yeah.
I love what you said as to how you grew up in a family of 8 and you were in the middle, and somehow you figured and you always loved to lead. Maybe just to start off from there, to tee off from that spot. Speaking about leadership, would you say it's something that one grows up into, or it's something that one can learn and develop in?
I think there's certain natural abilities, and I think we'll go into it a bit deeper when we talk about leadership, because leadership is not for everybody. I think there's a massive responsibility. So if ever you find yourself being asked to lead, and if you're not prepared to take the whole package of leadership, then I think it's unfair on the people that you are going to lead. Because people have this, this understanding that if you are in leadership, therefore they have certain expectations of you. And they're growing up in a family, in a community, growing up as a teacher or as a principal, you live in a fishbowl. So your life is somehow massaged into that role. So yes, you can learn techniques about leadership. You can acquire, the books that you have let me read and what I've studied, you start learning skills. But I think there's something about people naturally being drawn to someone who carries that. It's almost an ordained person, But I think if we look around in the world today, I think leadership can also be used for such negative as well. So I think it's a difficult space. So, but maybe to answer your question, I certainly believe you can learn skills around leadership, but it comes with a massive responsibility. If you don't want to take on that responsibility, please do not take the perks of leadership.
The perks of leadership, to jump on that, because I know that there's the perks of leadership that a lot of people want, that corner office, all the beautiful things that come with that title. But maybe talk more to the price of leadership, where I think a lot of people tend to want to negate that and try to run away and just want the perks but are not willing to pay the price of leadership.
I would say for me, Zandile, I think if I look at my own life, I think certain areas suffered. I can tell you now at this age, I am learning to try and balance my life. I think when you are young and full of energy and you are going somewhere, you just put so much energy into what you are doing. That sadly relationships with loved ones do suffer. And I think that's something that I remember watching something on Mandela. He was in a car somewhere in London and he was asked the question, with all that you've lost, not seeing your children grow up, your grandchildren, would you do it all again? And without blinking, Madiba said, absolutely yes. So what he understood, that with leadership comes the sacrifice that has to be made. And all our great leaders, and I'm talking about people we remember as great leaders, have all had to make that sacrifice. It's not a road that everyone wants to walk. So I can say only now I'm looking at, and we've been laughing about my transition out of where I'm at. It's about me listening to what my wife was saying. That for once in my life, I need to be led.
Oh, wow. Maybe I'm going to come back to this point, which you just, maybe let me zoom into where you are now as to what are you learning on this leadership journey that you're at? What are you currently learning? And I'm bringing this question, I want to tie it with something you said, especially to the younger generation, because I think with ourselves and part of the podcast family are young aspiring leaders and people who want to grow into leadership. What are some of the blind spots or certain things, maybe 3 points if you do have, that you would advise young leaders to take caution of as they climb this ladder of leadership and influence?
I think, you need to make peace with who you are. Because if you living in this misperception that I need to be perfect, I think one of the things I would say to a young person is be authentic, be yourself. And by that I mean be humble. And be open to learn. I must say I'm here not because of my own strength, but it's because there were people that went before me, and I stand on the shoulders of great men and women. So I don't believe that you must ever think this is going to be a journey that I will take alone. Yes, it's going to be a time when it's very, you feel very lonely. But at the same time, if you reach out There are people there that are willing to, and that's what I found in the leadership space.
Yeah.
There's so many people that are willing. I mean, just our relationship has come from a thing where we didn't know each other, and now we find that we are brothers, and that we just want to teach each other. Well, not teach, but we want to share with each other. And through that sharing, we are learning. You know, so if I see something, okay, let's get that to Zondile, I'm sure that'll add value to his life. So I would say, be open to learning, be authentic about who you are, and don't be afraid to reach out to others and ask for help. You know?
Let me just pause there. Podcast family, that's pure gold. For those who are listening, just go back about a minute or two. Those 3 characteristics will help catapult your leadership. Be open to learning, be humble and authentic, and be willing to reach out to others who have gone ahead of you.
Absolutely.
Wow. And then currently, what are you learning in the space that you're in? Before we dive into, I know something that's close to your heart within transformation, but currently in the space where we are, for those who might listen to this podcast years, we're in the backdrop of 2020, a very interesting year with a lot that's happening. Currently in this season, what are you learning?
So, Ndile, I think maybe just to position it, I'm currently the head of CBC Mount Edmund here in Pretoria, and this is I've been doing this for 3.5 years now, and I'm loving it. I think it's a wonderful space, and it's quite interesting. Our theme for the year was "Seeing the Unseen,"
I remember.
And God said, "Okay, if you didn't see COVID coming, so much for your theme, you know." But what it has done, it is really, and I like the word you use, catapult. It really has catapulted our school into another stratosphere that we've had to really research and look at, you know, what are we doing, how we are doing it, and what we need to change. And I think one of the areas that has come a lot, I mean, a lot of schools have transitioned into that, you know, that online learning space and looking at their whole IT infrastructure and the network. But I think for me, the care of the person, you know, we've set up wellness teams. So, and I think we've discovered that, you know, unless we attend to that part of a child, that we look at their wellness, we look at their emotional and their spiritual, what you are teaching them during, especially in this time of fear and anxiety, it's not going where it should be. So for me, it's about, as we move forward beyond COVID, it's about, we need to allocate more time and be, and you like to use the word intentional, about creating structures within the school that cares for the teachers, that cares for the children, and also cares for our families at large.
I'm just going to double click on that point, especially because of what you do. What do you think is the future, or how does the future look like within the education space, especially with how COVID has affected us?
Sure. I think there's different aspects to it, and being a third world country, we also have to be realistic about the ability to go online. We sit in a very fortunate space where we have got the facilities and we are building up that infrastructure. But I think what COVID, for me, their priorities have to change. You know, it's really less about how many subjects children do, but more about the skills that you are teaching. So maybe it's less that you do, but more concentrated. Identifying, and I think your higher education will come on board with this, to say what are the skills that young people need to navigate higher education. And your workplace needs to tell higher education, this is what we actually need. Because are we as a country producing graduates that got no work? And are we maybe struggling on the trade side or certain practical skills? And that needs to cascade down into schools. Because there's this obsession with doing so much, but are we not maybe skimming the surface? But certainly, I think any school worth its salt needs to look at the holistic development, investing in people, investing in what makes them. And our society is bereft with all the issues. You know, our children are struggling in homes without proper, you know, care, without, and it's no disregard to our parents, but a lot of them are working long hours. There's a lot of home situations that we are aware in our country, our legacy of our past, and because of the new money that's come in. And children are being left at the altar of this, parents wanting to get somewhere. So I believe the role of the school really has to get down. And I know the work that you do, you're passionate about it. And we need more people like you in schools, assisting schools, because teachers teach. But who's taking care of the other part? And what tends to happen, people are moved out of one area into another. Oh, you know, you look like you could do this. But But really, we need experts like yourself coming into schools and running those programs that are going to equip our children to make informed decisions.
Yes.
And
I love that. Maybe speak more as well around the importance of social and emotional learning within the school context, which I think is an area that has been neglected a lot. And I think, as you're mentioning, it's very important to equip the learners with the mind and the skills to be able to make healthy lifestyle choices and to take care of this emotional part and the social part in terms of relationships. It's actually a fascinating study I recently was doing about Gen Z and as to how they are maturing biologically faster, cognitively as well. They are smarter because of the devices and everything, even though their attention span is about 8 seconds. But there was a lag behind when it came to social well-being and how they handle their relationships, as well as their emotional, as to how they carry and deal with their emotions.
The couple of aspects to that. Firstly, I think as a school, we need to invest in training of our teachers. Teachers are trained in how to share the content. It's about retraining them. So you be a wellness teacher first, and then you're an English teacher. A wellness teacher, and then you're a maths teacher. So it's about changing the narrative. It's about seeing children first before just you get empty heads that you need to fill with content. So it's about that change, and that needs to happen. But importantly now, what we are discovering at CBC is about creating time. So when we came back, I was insistent that we have 30 seconds of calm, like they have on CNN. I mean, it's got to a lot more than 30 seconds, but the value of it is now being seen. So in our schools, where is that quiet space for children? Where's the quiet time? Where do they connect? And for me, that's going to become critical. So I can see the growth of that wellness in a school being so important, because all the things you're saying about Generation Z, a lot of those things are really above the shoulders. And it's about what's happening below that. You know, that heart stuff that children, for no reason or fault of theirs, they don't have a space to talk about. You know, and they are, and I think children today grapple with issues that we were fortunate enough, in a funny kind of way, never to grapple with. You know, you just got to look at the gender issues that our children are still going to grapple with. And how do we help them navigate that without making them feel terrible about who and what they are? And for me, and it seems strange coming as a head of a school, but we need to somehow say, what is excellence? You know, is excellence all about that mark? Or is it about excellence about the person that leaves our institution, that goes out into the world and is intentional about making a difference? That's, for me, I think there's going to be a shift because content is becoming less because, you know, it's Google. They've got all the devices. Children now can learn online. But what we discovered as children came back to school, they started sharing with their friends, and more friends came back to school because children were isolated. They could not measure. You know, you don't know how well you play golf. When you play with your wife, you're Tiger Woods. And if you play with your mates, you feel like you're Tiger Woods' caddy or less.
So more in the woods.
Yes, in the woods. But as they came back, they said, wow, I'm not so bad. I'm not so far behind because my mates are further behind. So we need that social interaction, but giving our children the tools. You know, and that emotional intelligence is something that you have to train. It doesn't just happen. Because most families don't have the time when you sit down. When I grew up, dinner was non-negotiable, and my mother would insist we'd have night prayers together. Even though my father tried to escape, so we prayed around his bed so he couldn't run away. But what I'm saying is there was definite time when you came together, and I don't know today. So I think that's going to be a bigger space in schools. If schools are really concerned about the individuals.
I love that. I think you mentioned quite a lot of powerful things, which I'm going to go back, listen over to this episode. But I love how you spoke about the work is beneath the head. It's more the heart. It's more that human connection, the relationships, the emotional intelligence that we need to teach. And I think because I was also a teacher for some time, there is no room for it because it's really content and lesson plans, and which is good and proper.
That's right.
But and again, because kids spend a lot of time at school.
Yes.
More time most of the time than they do with their parents. So I think it would be good for the school or education sector to begin to feed into that area, to better the child to make healthy decisions and to be set for the future ahead.
I think, and I think schools suffer with this. They employ someone to be the school counselor, but they forget to tell the children that this person's a school counselor. And the person has an office and a desk and a computer and a label on their door, but that's it. So their circle of influence is so negligible.
It's limited. I'm going to say something because I remember I did this. I was a school counselor for some years and I struggled a lot with that. I had a beautiful office, beautiful furniture, but most of the time it was empty until I took it upon myself to go out and reach the kids.
Yes.
Because initially there was this stereotype of people who go there are actually crazy. And they would be so humiliated until I made it fashionable or tried to show them that it's really not about someone who's got big problems or is suicidal. And the more I interacted with them, that's why I actually saw how deep the issues are.
But I think what we've discovered, and our school psychologist, she's also, revealed it to me yesterday in our meeting, was that now the way we're doing wellness at CBC, it's about every child. So she's seen some of the top performers that are going for time management, they're going for study skills, and these are A students. So there's a realization that it's not what you were saying, just for the children with problems. The minute that office becomes the kids who have drug issues or whatever, then it becomes just a little office somewhere that no one wants to go to. Wellness is all encompassing. And I think, but I just wanted to say this, and that's why I was talking about the heart. Because I think, as a Christian, and a follower of Jesus Christ, Jesus was all about the heart. He said, I haven't come to change the law. You see the law that's in your head. It's fine. You do your religious practices. That is not what it's about. It's until you come to the heart. And it's the same when we talk about transformation. I know what it's up there. But how is it here? And I think for me, the important thing is about our children's heads are full of knowledge. But what is that knowledge all about if they are not balanced human beings and they haven't got empathy for their brother and sister? So for me, that's why Jesus for me is such a role model about getting to your relationship. Because let's be honest, relationships expose us.
They do.
Relationships show us our weaknesses. Tell me, who is the person that is not going to lie to you? It's your wife. She will tell you, Zondile, listen, that thing on TV and that thing on the stage, that's fine. But back at the ranch, you got to be authentic with me. And that's where we find our biggest challenge. So, and it's something that I also struggle with, but that will probably come up later.
Maybe a quick one. I know you're not prepared for this, but fill in the blank. Leadership is?
Growth. For me, it would be growth. It would be growth, not just for myself, but for those around me. I don't believe leadership is about me achieving all these things. What does it help that I'm far ahead and no one around me? So leadership is about how you take those steps. Sometimes you're in front, and other times you're behind. You're pushing. Sometimes you walk away and you allow people to do what they have to do. Other times, because you one of the questions you posed to me was around management versus leadership. And for me, management is temporary. It's about me showing Zwandile what I want. And once Zwandile has acquired the skills, I've got to step back and allow you to do what you have to do with the mistakes that you're going to make. But in the full knowledge, It reminds me of the story of the dad who took his son out into the forest to become a man. And he said, son, tonight you're going to stay here. I'm going. And it was interesting. Dad never went far. He just went far enough so he could still watch his son, And I think that for me is what epitomizes leadership. It's not about leaving the person to the wolves, but it's about exposing them to situations where they will grow in those situations. Because I just think that it's those, when you have to make those decisions, this is the unpopular decisions. I remember first getting into St. Benedict's in Johannesburg, and a new city, a new school. And then I was told to make decisions. And I sat alone in the afternoons thinking, who do I go to? And that's when you go inside yourself and say, all right, I'm going to make this decision and live with the consequences of that decision. Sometimes it's a good one, sometimes is the fourth one. I think you make more bad ones than you make good ones.
Yeah.
You know, and people remember the bad ones long after the good ones. But my point is that there's someone there, and I had my previous role at that school, the boss who gave me that space, not to let me fail, but to allow me to grow. So for me, leadership is about growth, not just for myself, but it's for also those people around.
You said something so beautiful outside this podcast episode. We have a lot of growth conversations with you as to how also leadership is about growth, not only for yourself, but for others, and taking people to a place where they've never been.
Yeah.
Please tee off on that and speak more about that.
I think for me, that is the greatest joy I get from leadership, you know. And I can, not to mention people's names and stuff, but how often someone, they resist it.
Yeah.
They resisted when it's a leader. There's no way I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
You know, and I almost got like this reputation, you know, don't go to Langton with an idea because he's going to make you do it, you know. And for me, it's about making people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That's when the growth happens.
Wow.
Because this thing of being comfortable, I know it's a difficulty that I'm struggling with about how comfortable must you be and how uncomfortable you have to be.
Yeah.
But I think, like, you know, all the difficult conversations, it's very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know, being put out is very difficult, you know. So for me, it's about putting people into spaces and just believing in them. I'll never forget a conversation I had with my boss down in Durban, my headmaster. And I was in trouble again. Sure. It was a common thing sitting in the head's office because I was a young man with more energy than I knew what to do with it. And he was ranting and raving at me, and another parent had complained about something. And he said to me, Bernard, when you are a principal one day. And so I heard nothing after that. For the next 10 minutes, I heard nothing. That man, in his anger, prophesied on my life.
Wow.
And I went home and I said to my wife, I can't believe it. I almost got fired. But you know, I'm going to be a headmaster one day. You know, and I think sometimes we don't realize the power of the tongue.
Yeah.
And just to say to another young person,
wow,
you know, I believe in you.
Wow.
You know, one day when and it's quite difficult because sometimes the person is not in a senior position because of whatever reason, but you can see the excellence and the leadership potential.
Wow.
And just to say to that person, you don't know what that does to that person.
Wow.
Because most of us are so used to criticism.
Yeah.
We just know that we're going to be criticized.
Yeah. But
when someone in a leadership position, recently I said to one of my staff, there was an advert for a head of a primary school. I sent it to her. She says, why are you sending it to me? I said, because I believe you could apply for that post. She said, no, you're joking. I said, why not? She said, I'm too young. I said, okay. I've heard that in the Bible a few times. She said, oh, listen to this. She says, oh, so you want to get rid of me? Okay, that's one way of looking at it, but that was never my intention. You know, and that's the thing, because we're so used to live with criticism that when somebody actually identifies, you know, that you've got leadership ability and you've got potential. You know, it may not happen today, but I know I've planted a seed.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Maybe there's something you mentioned. You're saying a lot of powerful things. Podcast family, this is really... no, thank you so much for this call, because it's just a lot of powerful nuggets that you're sharing and are definitely adding so much value to us. Just speak about having tough conversations as a leader, because you mentioned that, and I think it's one of the things that defines leadership, having tough conversations which are necessary.
You know, I think the hardest part, Swandile, is that not knowing how the person's going to take it.
Yeah.
You know, and that for me is always difficult, because you don't really know people that deeply. You know, and I know recently I had one with one of my senior members of staff, and I really chanced it and I pushed the envelope. And I don't know how far we've got. I think there's been a lot of progress. And I need to follow up on that conversation. But it's not easy, because it's not about criticizing the person, but it's about identifying certain blind spots. And encouraging them to look at those blind spots and to see them for what they are. But you have to go there. Because as a leader, if you don't go into difficult conversations, you're not being authentic. And how do you allow somebody to grow if you're not giving them the license to grow? You know, by identifying certain blind spots. And in my leadership team, and you can ask them, I always speak about that. I say, I've got blind spots. Help me. Because I'll help you with yours.
Wow.
But you have to, as a leader, if you're not prepared to do those difficult conversations, then what are you there for? Signing checks or making speeches?
Tough conversations are part of leadership, and there's no way of running away from them. One of the beautiful things I've noted and I love about you is how you connect with people so effortlessly. It seems effortlessly, but you're one of the best connectors that I've seen. I remember an incident back at St. Thomas in Witbank, in Malahleni, where it was I'm not sure if it was a parents' evening or something, and Mr. Langton just rocked up there and I'm like, who does that? And it's a formal event, and he gets there, he walks on stage, and I don't know how many people I've brought into your space, and I've seen you interacting with parents, upper echelon people, but I just love how you naturally connect with people.
I think there's a certain level of emotional intelligence. You don't do that all the time. It was my last session with the parents at St. Thomas, and I knew it would speak to them, your audience, and it spoke to them, and the reaction was, okay, some dad to try and lift their jaws off the ground, but for most of them, I was like, that's Langton, we know he's a bit on the left side. I think it's about reading people, it's about understanding, but it's also about not invading people's space. I found, especially in golf, I've made a lot of connections, and I play with different people all the time, but I never invade their space. I just kind of tee off and we play. It may take 9 holes, it may take 17 holes before you actually make the connection, but it's about not, trying to force yourself on, and sometimes it just doesn't work. I don't know where I get it from, Zondile, but I can see connections that other people can't see. I'm constantly, and it just happens. I make these connections. At our meeting today, one of my deputies said to me, "Yes, but you never forget." And I think it's not about not forgetting, but there's certain things that make an impression, and I see things, and when I have the opportunity, I'll be like, "Hey, Zondile, that I need to connect him with that," And so it's something I just see. But maybe because my heart is about connecting people. It's because I always say, and one of the things I must say on this podcast, that it's never about me. It's not about Zondile. You are just a vessel and a vehicle by which, whatever your faith belief is, your creator is trying to bring a message. Jesus came onto this earth with a specific purpose. But so was Abraham, and so was Peter and Paul, and so were many after them. You are there for that period of time. We talk, Mandela should have been here longer, we wouldn't have lived with the corruption, etc. No. He was called for a specific purpose, and he did it. And for me that's important. It's not about me. I'll be here and I'll be gone. But I want to know that I left a legacy. I made an impact for the time that I was there. And you only do that not by policies and decisions you take. It's about investing in people. And no one will ever forget that.
Wow. Thank you so much. Maybe as we bring in our plane for landing, I'd like us maybe to talk a bit about transformational leadership, which is something I know you're very passionate about. There are projects that you are busy with. What's your philosophy around transformational leadership?
Life is a journey. And I think that we need to see it like that. We live in such a beautiful country. I've been so blessed to have grown up in Africa. I travel. One of my biggest passions is traveling. I love travel. My wife and I connect with travel. It's unbelievable. And the more I travel, the more I grow, and the more I love my country, because I realize there's an authenticity about being African, that we're not about the external. And those who do go after the external normally fall in their face, because it's not about that. You don't measure someone's worth by what they've got. It's not out there, it's what's within. So for me, it's about how do we connect people within our country to have those conversations about what do you see when Zondile walks into the room, or when I walk into the room, or anybody else walks into the room. How do we go beyond the color of somebody's skin? The sexual orientation of a person, all those things that inhibit us. And sometimes, Zondile, we have to unlearn, and that's why neuroscience and neurocoaching for me is fascinating. It's about looking at those neural pathways and saying, what are these blocks? Why can't I connect with someone that's different to me? What is it about me that's stopping me? And sometimes it could be our upbringing. It could be the religious background we have that has implanted certain things that we are unable to unshackle.
Wow.
So for me, it's about having those conversations.
Yeah.
And what I like about coaching, which may be different to therapy, coaching, you ask the hard questions.
Yeah.
Coaching, you push people and you challenge them to make decisions and say, try that.
Yeah.
And they go, wow, I never thought I could do that.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm just passionate about how we change the landscape in our country.
Yeah.
And I just know there are so many young people coming up that are going to take the baton from us and keep running.
Yeah.
But we as leadership now need to set those examples. For the young people.
Thank you so much for that. I love how you put it in terms of it's more a mirror perspective more than a window.
Yes.
Where you don't look at the next person, but you look at yourself.
Yes.
As to introspection. What are some of the blocks and stereotypes and mindsets and beliefs that I might have that are actually blocking and limiting me from seeing this person the way they are? What are maybe some of the practical initial steps or small initial steps that leaders can take to make a transformational difference in the area of culture that they feel needs to be reformed or transformed?
I think they need to have some idea, for me, of the end product.
Okay.
So there must be, it's not crystal clear, but there should be some idea, hazy, about where you want to go, because you can't just go nowhere. So you have this idea, okay? And then for me, it's about doing as much research as you can. You know, whatever the field you want to be part of, do your research. You're not going to know everything, but have some idea. Okay. And like I said earlier, you need to be open to learn and remain humble. You know, and I put my hands down because it means you stay on the ground. If you're on the ground and you fall, it's not too far. It's when you start, you start elevating yourself, and the pride comes before a fall. So for me, it's about staying humble. It's about being open to learn. It's about doing your research and having some kind of idea, even if it's a hazy picture of where you ultimately want to. Because as you enter into those spaces, so does the light start coming on, and you see, oh, is this where I'm, so and also just, I don't know to what extent your viewers have come from a particular faith background, but I think that's very, very important because you need to come from somewhere. You can't come from nowhere. You know, and for me, you need to come from a faith background, whatever your faith is and whatever your belief system is. You've got to have something that roots you. You can't just float and float and float and float.
Thank you so much for that. This has been an amazing podcast. Maybe as we conclude, what are your parting shots that you'd like to share with us and to our podcast family from your heart?
For me, it's, if I could say to any young person or any person in leadership, it's just have no fear.
Wow.
You know, I think there's one expression in the Bible that is repeated from Genesis to Revelation: be not afraid. You know, and I think what COVID has done is crippled us with fear. You know, and I think a lot of people don't realize their potential because it's fear. What if? What if I fail? What if this doesn't work out? And my thing to anybody is have no fear. Go into spaces that other people don't think you should go. And just trust yourself, believe in yourself, because if no one else in the world believes in you, you at least believe in yourself. At least one person believes in you, and that's yourself. But just don't have fear. Because I think, unfortunately, growing up in families, I think, you know, the way we were raised, a lot to do with fear. You know, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. And you think back, when did my parents tell me what to do? You know? And so for me, unfortunately, the child doesn't hear don't, they just hear what, you know. So if it's a negative, then you're losing the point. So for me, it's about just assessing all these things that make up who we are, but don't allow fear stop us from growing. And, you know, I think we've got examples of our great leaders that have gone before us. And they didn't have fear. Yes, they may have suffered as a result of it, but because of their suffering has opened the way that you and I can sit today in this building talking about something about leadership. Our parents couldn't talk about leadership. There was no such a thing. It was leadership within a small little cocoon. You know, and it's because of their sacrifices. So let their sacrifice not go to waste. No fear. And let's just lead with that moral fiber. And just take our country to the place where it can be. A beacon in the world, not an example of how the negative can overcome all the good that we've started when Mandela came into power.
Wow. Thank you so much, Mr. Langton. This has been an amazing podcast episode. I've taken a lot from it.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot. I'm definitely going to go back and reflect. Thank you so much for being part of the episode. I promise you, podcast family, we're definitely going to be having Mr. Langton soon and very soon for a candid conversation. He's doing a lot of phenomenal things in this space and season of his life, which we will talk more about. I'm interacting a lot with him now, and I'm definitely going to tie him down to just a candid conversation so that he can share from the space where he is. So thank you so much to you, podcast family, for taking time and listening to this podcast. A reminder again for the episode notes, the link is in the bio where you can download them, and it will help you with application. Till we meet again, let's continue to change the world one individual at a time.